Hello, investigators. Welcome to Tried and Convicted, our brand new true crime podcast focused on finding answers for unsolved or partly solved murder cases. I'm your host, Lauren Oganowski.
And I'm Sophia.
Today's episode surrounds the tragic and brutal murder of a decorated war veteran turned milkman in the over 50 years of unanswered questions that surrounded his murder. This is the story of Hiram Graham. Hiram Ross Graham was born on August 18, 1920, to parents Harry and Myrtle May Graham in Kankakee, Illinois. Hiram was the youngest of 4 kids, with 2 older sisters and an older brother. Not much can be found about the quality of Hiram's childhood, but it is important to note that he grew up in the Depression era, and this likely affected his childhood.
I can imagine for a family of 6 during the Great Depression, things could have been stressful for his parents financially.
Yes, exactly. And what's more is that his father, Harry, was a World War I veteran and remained unemployed for years post-war. Unfortunately, Harry died when Hiram was only 15.
That must have been so difficult for him.
For sure. Luckily, however, he had the support of his mother and 3 older siblings. After his father's death, the family relocated to Ohio, where he went to college and then pursued a job in medicine. In 1940, Hiram married Doris Ann Sheets and began a life with her in Ohio. When World War II rolled around, however, he knew he had to follow in his father's footsteps and enlist. Hiram did very well in the military and helped facilitate the liberation of multiple Holocaust concentration camps, and as a result received a Purple Heart and an honorable discharge.
So he was a real-life hero.
Yes. In my research, it became very clear that this man loved to help and support his community.
It's always so hard to see such tragic things happen to such beautiful souls.
I agree. Once discharged from the military, he once more relocated, now to Indian River County, Florida. He and Doris settled into a new home and new jobs, Hiram now working as a milk truck delivery driver. They became a family when welcoming their first son, Larry, in 1952, followed by another son a few years later. The family settled into their daily routines, and Hiram easily began gaining familiarity with the neighborhood. On one April afternoon, however, Hiram set out on the usual milk route for the last time.
Oh no, here comes my least favorite part.
I'll try to make it quick. On Thursday, April 11th, 1968, Hiram set out for his milk route. Often, he would park his truck on the side of the road and carry multiple deliveries with him at a time and bring them door to door from there. This is exactly what he did on this day. On his way back to the truck, he was stopped by 2 men and engaged in a conversation with them for only a few minutes before announcing, "I'll be back soon," to a neighbor witness and driving away in his truck with the 2 men.
Wow, that's eerie, knowing what happened to this poor man.
Yes, it almost makes one wonder if he knew what was going to happen to him. This was the last anyone had seen or heard from him. After a few hours without any sign of Hiram returning, the same eyewitness that had seen him talking to the 2 men alerted the police. The police rushed to Hiram's family home, where his wife and children were still waiting for him. At the time, a search party began to look for Hiram in his truck. Eventually, his body was found beside the truck in a private wooded area. He suffered 2 bullet wounds to the head and was robbed of the $68 he had on him. His family was informed of his tragic death, and the search began for the killers. When asked if he had any enemies, his family and community told law enforcement that he was admired by everyone and he couldn't hurt a fly. With no leads, no forensic evidence, and only 1 eyewitness, the case went cold.
His poor family. Must have been so hard to live with no answers or justice for Hiram.
Yes, his family took his death with a lot of weight. In fact, his widow, Doris, died only a few years after his murder. Their son Larry believes she died of a broken heart.
So she never knew who did it?
Unfortunately, Doris never found out, but her son was determined to find the killers. Almost 40 years after the murder, in 2006, Larry released a public plea urging anyone with information on the case to come forward. In response, a middle-aged man named Thomas J. Williams wrote a letter to the Indian River Police Department claiming he had been blamed for the murder and was arguing his innocence. Nothing much came of this letter, and unfortunately, this case remained closed.
Did they investigate this letter?
It seems like the police were interested in the letter, but the case lacked the evidence to pursue Williams at that point. Unfortunately, Williams died in 2016, and for a while, it seemed as though this was the end of any leads police had for the case. That was until 2022. When Williams' ex-wife came forward and claimed he had confessed to the murder before his death in 2016. She claimed she feared for her safety and the safety of her family too much to come forward any sooner. In early April 2024, the case was officially linked to Williams with the help of this new testimony.
So the case is finally put to justice?
In some ways, yes, but not fully. This is where you, the viewers, come in. As I'm sure you noticed, there were 2 men suspected in being involved in the murder. And while Williams has been linked, there is still a major lack in leads for the other men involved. So, if you or your family have any information on who this man may be, anything at all, please come forward so that a guilty man may be tried and convicted and an innocent family may gain closure.
Even if you think what you know is too small, it might just be the missing link that the police need.
Yes, you're exactly right. Just look at William's ex-wife. It only took one person to close that door on the case. Well, it looks like that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Sophia, for joining me, and thank you, viewers, so much for listening to Tried and Convicted. Stay safe and stay curious. I'm your host, Lauren Oganowski. Have a good night.